good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in from truly across the world today for another very exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. We're in the home stretch. We've got like 5 more programs to go before we're done for 2025, and we will have done 365 programs on every science topic imaginable. So if you want to hear from the coolest scientists and explorers on planet Earth, head to the YouTube channel. They all go up live there. So much to explore and discover, and it's been such an honor having you all on. If this is your last program of the year, thank you for being the world's coolest audience. Now, speaking of cool, I live in Newfoundland, in eastern Canada, on the west side of the island, surrounded by mountains. And this morning, I woke up and got to shovel 2 feet of snow off my roof because we had like a howling blizzard with like 60 mile an hour, 100-kilometer winds yesterday, and like half a meter of snow, like 2 feet of snow that all fell. So I'm very cold, so I got this big sweater. And so I wanted to take you on a journey to the exact opposite thing, which is amazing sea turtles on a beach in Florida. Oh, sounds lovely. If you guys are as excited as I am, we're going to go on a really cool journey together with one of the most amazing conservation teams in the world. Now, before we go live with Emily, I want to note we do have a Kahoot today. So if you want to play along with a little quiz between the talk and Q&A, you can pull up that game pin. We'll get to that in about 20 minutes. But as I said, without further ado, for our 3rd time this year, we are partnering with the amazing folks at Disney Conservation. We started with monarchs back a couple months ago. A week and a bit ago, we did this turtle program, and we wanted to offer it again because there's so many of you so excited about turtles, and like 700 of you showed up today. So a big welcome to all of you. And without further ado, I'm going to turn you over to Emily. Thank you so much for joining us today, and take us away to tell us about turtles, Emily. I can't wait.
Yes, so thank you so much for having me. I can't believe that you all are joining us from all across the world. That is so exciting. I'm really excited to talk to you today about Disney's Sea Turtle Conservation Program. My name is Emily Harden. I am a Conservation Programs Manager with Disney Conservation, which means that I have the wonderful pleasure and honor of leading our Sea Turtle Conservation Program here at Disney. So if you have heard of Walt Disney World, you might be familiar with all of our parks in kind of the middle of Florida. But we also have a resort called Disney's Vero Beach Resort, which is over on the east coast of Florida. So it's about 2 hours from Walt Disney World. And this is a really, really special place where we are on a beach that has a lot of nesting sea turtles. And I'll talk a little bit more in a few slides about why this area is so important for turtles, but it provides us a wonderful opportunity to be able to learn more about turtles and to share all of that knowledge with you all. So with that, I'll kind of dive right in, and I want to zoom out a little bit and just kind of go over sea turtles of the world. So there are 7 species of sea turtles across the entire world, and we see 5 of them in the waters near Florida. So we see our loggerheads, they're kind of our most common, our green sea turtles, our leatherbacks, and then our hawksbills and our Kemp's Ridleys as well. So the hawksbills and the Kemp's Ridleys, we don't see many of them nesting on our beaches in Florida, but we do get a handful of them maybe every year. But they do like to hang out in the waters all around Florida as well. So there's only 2 species that we don't see around here. There's the olive ridley, which are, they like to hang out closer to the equator, so more in that warm water. And then the flatbacks are only found in Australia. So pretty cool. So sea turtles, I mentioned that they are all over the world. So they will swim around and use the waters really all over, but then they come up onto land to lay their nests. So it's the only time that they come up onto shore, and it's only the females that come up. So the males never come to land. We really don't know a whole lot about them because of that, because they are always swimming around in the open ocean, in the waters. And so we really know most about the females. And you can see on this map here, this shows all of their nesting sites across the world. So they're nesting really everywhere. But you can see kind of in that North America, South America area, there's a lot of circles there, a lot of colors, which means a lot of species are nesting there. The size of the circles are really big, which means that there are just really, really large numbers of turtles that are nesting. So this area in general is really, really critical for sea turtles and their nesting habitat. And if we zoom in a little bit closer to Florida, so we are situated in that little square there, that white square. So that is where Disney's Vero Beach Resort is. And you can see all these colors that are on the coastline are representing like the density of sea turtle nesting. So red means that there's a lot of turtles nesting there, while yellow is like, there's some turtles nesting there. So I have shown here both the loggerhead sea turtle density and the green sea turtle density. And you can see that where that white square is, there's a lot of red and oranges in there. So it's a really, really high density nesting beach. And we're actually situated just on the southern border of the Archie Carr National Wildlife Refuge, which was actually designated as a wildlife refuge because of the nesting turtles there. So it's just a hugely important area on the east coast of Florida where we just see really, really high numbers of turtles that are coming to nest, which is awesome. And so we really have 3 turtles that nest there most frequently. So we have our leatherback sea turtles. These are kind of the rarest in our area. And we have our green sea turtles, which usually are our second most common, although this year, for the first year in our 23 years of doing this research, they actually had more nests this past summer than our loggerhead sea turtles, which are usually our most common. So all of these species are considered threatened or endangered under the U.S. Endangered Species Act. And fun little note here, they used to all be considered endangered or critically endangered by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, which is basically a group of scientists that looks at all of the data. They'll come together and they come up with an agreement of, how concerned do we need to be about certain species? And it's not just sea turtles that they designate, it's all species across the entire world. So if a species is critically endangered or endangered, it means that they are at a considerable risk of becoming endangered in the near future. So the IUCN, that big group of scientists, they just met recently, a few months ago, to look at all of the species updates for this coming year. And they actually determined that the green sea turtle on a global scale is no longer endangered. They are actually now least concern. So that is huge news. That basically means that all of the conservation efforts are paying off, which is amazing. So this uplisting of this species or downlisting really means that what we're doing is making a difference. But it doesn't mean that the work ends there. Just because they were, downlisted to least concern doesn't mean that our work is over. It just means that we have to keep going and keep ensuring that this species is continuing to thrive and that their populations are recovering. So this is really, really great news, and it kind of energizes all of us scientists to kind of keep going. So that's exciting news. So I kind of want to dive into each of these species that we see on our beaches a little bit more and just share some of their cool, fun facts. So the leatherback sea turtles are probably by far some of the coolest. They are massive. So these females that are coming up to nest weigh about 750 to 1,000 pounds. Crazy, right? So they are just massive. The largest on record was 2,000 pounds. So that's a ton, like an entire ton. So they are just really, really large turtles. Their shell length, so just their shell, not even including their head, is like 4 to 8 feet long. And they're called a leatherback sea turtle because their shells are actually not hard like most turtle species that you're probably familiar with. It's actually kind of leathery. So it's actually flexible. It feels almost soft to the touch. And that's because these turtles are really, really deep divers. They can dive down 5,000 feet almost, or more like 4,000 to 5,000 feet. So they're diving really, really deep. And if you think about, if you're diving in the deep end of the pool, you start to feel that like pressure build on you, right? So imagine if you're going several thousand feet down, that's a lot of pressure that's being put on these turtles. And so that flexible shell actually lets them like accommodate that pressure, and it doesn't hurt them. And so they go really, really deep because they love to eat jellyfish. So they pretty much are eating primarily jellyfish. They can eat like 270 pounds of jellyfish in a single day. So they're eating lots and lots and lots of jellyfish. And that's how they get to be so big, is just on these jellyfish, which is crazy. So these females will come and they'll nest like every 2 to 4 years or so, and they're laying about 80 eggs in each nest. So when we are doing our research out on the beaches, we are basically going in the morning and we're looking at the tracks that the turtles left in the sand. Because just like you leave footprints when you're going out walking onto the beach, they kind of leave their own version of footprints as well, which are what we call these tracks in the sand. And so from these tracks, we have to determine, we don't see the turtle. We're just going out in the morning after she's already nested and gone back to the ocean. So we have to figure out what species was it? Who was she? The leatherbacks are the easiest because they are massive. That is me laying in that track. I am 5'4", so I am like her her track that she left in the sand, her flipper span, is as wide as I am tall with my arms above my head. So they are just massive, massive animals. And so it's easy for us to be able to find their tracks in the morning. The green turtles, as I mentioned, they usually are our second most common species, although this past year they were our most common, which is kind of cool. On average, they're about 300 to 400 pounds. So sounds kind of small in comparison to those leatherbacks, but rest assured they're still very, very large. Their shell is about 3 to 5 feet long. So they're still pretty big. They are kind of distinguished by having these like tiny little heads. And I actually have a replica of a skull here. So this is a green sea turtle skull. So you can see that it's relatively small, and I'll try to hold this close to the camera, but you can see on their jaw, it's kind of serrated, right? Almost like a butter knife. And that's because these turtles are vegetarians of the sea, as we call them. So when they're adults, they are herbivores, which means that they eat only plants. And so that serrated jaw helps them bite through all of that seagrass that they're eating. And so these girls will come and nest about every other year. And they're going to lay about 130 eggs in each nest. So they're laying a lot of eggs. They're going to lay multiple nests within a season. So they're going to be laying hundreds of eggs over a season. And that's why they only do it like every other year, because that's a lot of energy and a lot of time. And so she's usually like, okay, I need a little bit of a break. I'll come back in a couple of years. And their fun fact is that their name, green sea turtle, is actually coming from the color of their fat. So because they eat so much plant material, they're eating a lot of chlorophyll, and that chlorophyll is actually turning their fat green. And so when they come up onto the beach, they are going to leave very distinct tracks in the sand, just like the leatherback, but in a different way. So when they come up on land, they are going to do, if we have any swimmers on the call, they kind of do like the butterfly stroke. So they're going to use both of their flippers, pull themselves up at the same time. So both flippers pull themselves up. So when we look at their tracks, we can see that those flipper marks are really distinct in the sand, and they are directly parallel from each other. They also are very dramatic when they nest. And so they leave these huge, huge nests on the beach. It basically is like a big old pit and then a huge pile of fluffy sand behind it. So it's pretty easy to distinguish a green turtle nest because they just leave a really, really big mess. And then our our loggerheads are typically our most common species. They're a little bit smaller, about 200 to 350 pounds, and their shells are going to be about 3 feet long. They are called loggerheads because their heads are like big old logs. So they've got these huge, huge heads and a really thick neck. And the reason that they have such large heads is because they like to eat a lot of really crunchy things. So they are carnivores. They're eating lots of meat in the form of like crabs and clams and invertebrates, things that are really, really hard to crunch through. And so in order to be able to crunch through all of that, they need to have really big jaw muscles. And so I have a replica of a loggerhead skull here. And if I show you the back of it, see these huge cavities here, this one and this one? Those are really, really big open cavities. Those house their jaw muscles. So these guys have really, really strong jaws. And this little hole here, this is where their brain sits. So they've got a little brain and a big bite. All right. So these girls, they'll come nest about every 2 to 3 years, and they're laying about 115 eggs per nest. Like the other turtles, they'll lay multiple nests within a season. So again, hundreds of eggs. And these are the most common in all of Florida. So when they come up onto the beach, they actually move differently than the greens do. So those greens did the butterfly, right? The loggerheads will do the freestyle stroke. So they're going to use one flipper and pull themselves up, and then the other one, and they're going to alternate. So their flipper marks in the sand are going to look kind of wavy, and we'll see that those flipper marks are offset from each other. They also leave like a nice cleaner area on the beach. We'll basically just see their tracks go up, and then we'll kind of see them disappear under some fluffy sand and then reappear again. So our sea turtle conservation program, as I've mentioned, we are really, really lucky to have a Disney resort that is right in this area that is so important to sea turtles. And it provides us this amazing opportunity to really learn a lot about turtles and see how we can make sure that we are ensuring that this area of Florida is welcoming to sea turtles, and that it's not only going to be a nice, safe place for turtles to nest this year and next year, but also 30, 60, 100 years into the future. Sea turtles take about, depending on the species, anywhere from like 10 to 30 years to reach maturity, meaning that once they hatch, they're going to head out and they're going to just live their life, and they're going to grow up for almost 30 years. And then they're going to come back and lay their own nests on the beach that they hatched from. And so we want to make sure that, we're not just creating a nice, safe place for turtles to nest that are coming next year, but we want to make sure that the ones that are hatched from our beaches this summer, they're going to have a place to come back to in 30 years to lay their first nests as well. And so that means that we have to do a lot of research to understand what makes this such an important area for turtle nesting. Like, what do they like about this area? And how can we make sure that we are continuing to maintain, that environment for them? But also, what makes a nest successful? So you'll see in this top photo on the right-hand side, you'll see some people that are shifting through a lot of what looks like eggshells. And that's what it is, eggshells. So after a sea turtle nest hatches, we're going to go in and do an evaluation to see how successful was that nest. So we're going to pull everything out of there, and we're going to count the eggshells. We're going to see how many eggs did mom lay, how many of them hatched. If they didn't hatch, maybe we can figure out why they didn't hatch. Did a ghost crab get into the nest or something like that? And so all of this information helps us understand what's happening with the turtle population trends, what is making a nest successful, and what we can do to make sure that that continues. So we are out there every single day from May through October. We're documenting all of the nests, all of the crawls that the turtles made. We're collecting a lot of data. How far are they from the tide line? How far are they from the vegetation? Getting really exact GPS coordinates on every nest so we can see, are they getting washed over by a really high tide? If a hurricane comes through, how is that impacting the nest? Are there any predators trying to get into the nest? So we're collecting data on these nests every single day throughout their incubation. And then we're looking at that success, like I mentioned. And so we're not only out there just trying to learn more about the turtles, but we need to take what we learn and put it into action. And so at Disney's Vero Beach Resort, we do many things to make sure that we are creating a nice environment for the sea turtles that are nesting there and that are hatching there. And so one of the biggest things that we do is make sure that the resort is having sea turtle friendly lighting. So lighting is really important to sea turtles. They will typically only come up to nest at night, and they'll only hatch at night. So it's nice and dark usually out there. So if they're on a nice natural beach, it's really dark, lights can be really disorienting for them. And so especially for the hatchlings, when they all come out and they are ready to hatch out of their nest with all of their siblings, they're coming up at night and it should be really dark. And so their instinct is telling them that the brightest thing on their horizon is the ocean. Because if you think you've got like a dark dune behind you, you've got the ocean in front of you, the waves are crashing, and there's like ambient starlight, maybe some moonlight, that's all reflecting on the ocean. So their instinct tells them light equals ocean. And so this could be a bit of an issue on areas where there are hotels and homes and resorts, because maybe they have lights on that are brighter than the ocean. And the hatchlings don't really know that, they just think, I need to go where it is brightest. And sometimes that means away from the ocean. So at the resort, we have a very extensive lighting plan where we use amber colored lights, which the turtles do not see as well. They can't see into that red color spectrum as well as they can, like brighter whites and blues. And we have a lot of structures that actually block, physically block the light coming from like our pool area. And we have turtle-friendly tint on the windows that we can actually apply to the windows. You can't even tell that it's there, but it blocks a lot of that light from leaving. The resort has also done a really great job of reducing their single-use plastics. So plastic, as you all probably know, it can be an issue for not just sea turtles, but wildlife everywhere. Plastic just doesn't break down. That's one of the reasons it was invented, was because it can be very long lasting. But that's also kind of one of its main flaws, is that if it gets out into the environment, it might be there for thousands of years. And so the resort has really worked to reduce that single-use plastic, just to reduce that risk of any plastic getting out into the environment where it could be harmful to not only just the general environment, but any species that might mistake it for food or might accidentally get tangled up in something. So they have really reduced all of that use, and they've switched from like all those little tiny bottles of shampoo and conditioner to bulk sized bottles. And then especially in their food and beverage areas, they've been reducing like packaging on a lot of their food. The staff at the resort also participate in a lot of beach cleanups. So making sure that, if there is any trash on the beach, whether it washed in from the tide or maybe some beachgoers, walking down the beach, someone accidentally dropped something, making sure that we're picking that up on a regular basis and making sure that that's not getting back out into the water, or that turtles, as they're coming up to nest, or hatchlings as they're headed to the water, they're not running into that trash. I mentioned a lot about the research that we're doing. So, we're always trying to look at new things to learn more about the turtles that are nesting there and how we can better help them. And then we're telling people about it. So we can't do this alone. My team we are small but mighty, but we are not going to change the world, just us. It really takes everybody. So the more that we can share the message and, get other people involved, it's just going to become a huge movement. And then we can hopefully make a difference for sea turtles. So if you are visiting a beach, so if you're going on vacation or you live at the coast, one of the things that we like to encourage is keeping our beaches dark, clean, and flat. So I touched on the light, how light can be very disorienting to turtles. So if you're ever visiting a beach, don't use your flashlight on the beach. If you are staying somewhere where your bedroom window might be facing the ocean, close those blinds at night. Simple, easy way to make sure that all of that light is not getting out onto the beach and that those turtles have just the natural light to go by, which is what they need. And then keep it clean, like I said, making sure that we're picking up trash. It's going to help not just turtles, but almost every other species out there. So it's a great way to help wildlife, is just pick up that trash, whether it's yours or somebody else's. And then keep our beaches flat. So hatchlings are tiny. So I have a little model of a hatchling here. So smaller than, he fits in the palm of my hand. So they are tiny. If you can imagine being this big and trying to make your way to the ocean, even a footprint could be pretty significant barrier to you getting to the water. So if you are visiting the beach and you like to build sandcastles, knock them down. Just knock it down at the end of the day. It's kind of a fun, I think it's pretty fun, actually, more fun even than building it sometimes. So knock it down, and then that's just one less barrier that hatchling or that mom turtle has to encounter. Also, something about being at the beach, everyone loves to dig holes. Just fill in those holes at the end of the day. And then, hatchlings won't need to worry about falling into them or trying to get around them. So simple ways. And then even if you're not on the beach or visiting the beach, there are ways that you can help sea turtles. So yes, the sea turtles might just be on the coast, but you don't have to be on the coast to help them. So the biggest thing that you can do is just keep learning. So that's what you all are all doing here today. You're learning more about sea turtles, you're expanding your knowledge, and then you can go share that with other people. So tell anyone. My friends know I'm always going to talk about turtles to them. They're probably sick and tired of hearing about turtles at this point. But that's really the best way to make sure that more people, like I said, we can't do this alone. We need more people to help and to get involved in turtles. And to understand about them and to care about them. And so the more that you can do to kind of spread the message, it helps. You can also volunteer. There are conservation and wildlife organizations all across the country and the world that need your help. So you can volunteer, you can clean up your community, start a beach cleanup. It can be small, you can just go out with your friends, you can get organizations involved and make it a big event that the whole community comes out for. And, as I mentioned, there's conservation organizations all over. You can support them financially or with your time. And then kind of one of the simplest things to do is to reduce, reuse, and recycle. It is that simple, and it is so powerful and effective. So you always want to try to just reduce what you're doing, reuse as much as you can, and recycle when you can't reuse it. So that's about all that I have. And I think we want to go to a Kahoots quiz and then questions.
Dive with Q&A. Emily, thank you so much for such an awesome deep dive on turtles. You guys are doing so much, and it's so cool to get to explore some of the most amazing animals on planet Earth. I grew up as a big reptile fan, so anytime I get to hear about their exploits in the oceans of the world, I'm always thrilled. As you said, we're going to dive in with Kahoot. If you want to come out of screen share so you can see us again, have a bit of a conversation, feel free to do that. For those who are new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get, and what you win is Emily and I's everlasting respect. So we're going to start this in just a second. Emily, if you want to help us with hints along the way so that we can make sure everyone's on board and get people as many right answers as possible, that would be awesome. And then we're going to dive in with questions. So there's 83 of you in the Kahoot already. I'm going to go one by one through all our classes. We're going to take as many questions as we can. We already have more on YouTube than we can actually take in a live broadcast. So please do write me extra ones when we're done, and I'll pass them along to Emily and make sure her entire Christmas is inundated with your turtle questions. That is my dream. So, all right. Question 1. Here we go. How many species of sea turtles are there? We talked about this at the beginning. Is it 3, 5, 7, or 10? I kept them all in a pretty tight little range here. One of these numbers is the number that are in Florida. One of them is the number that's around the world. So that could be a little hint for you guys. 6 seconds. Emily, what's our other hint? Do we have any with 3 seconds to go? I don't know. I time. That's on me, but most people got it right anyway. Yay. 7 is correct. Proud Wolf takes our lead. Way to go. All right. Question 2. The largest leatherback ever was how big? Now, my hint for this with 200, 400, 1,000, 2,000 is that if you're like a grade 3 or 4 class, it's like every kid in your class together weighs less than one turtle.
Yep.
I mean, it's a hardy turtle in that picture. So maybe that's your hint. Oh, we're almost at 100 in the Kahoot. We have 100 in the Kahoot.
Amazing.
So
y'all are great.
Right. Yes, 2,000 pounds, 1 ton, which is crazy. All right. Proud Wolf has our lead, barely over Diligent Crab. Question 3. Sea turtles can pull their heads into their shells like some turtles on land. We didn't actually address this, but I'm curious what you think. This is the question that tripped up the most people the first time we ran this program. All right. Emily, did we see any turtles where their heads were in the shell in this broadcast?
I didn't. I don't think I have any pictures where they have their head or their flippers in. They've got some big flippers too.
Ooh, look at this. Most people thought true. Okay. So there's been a question on YouTube too. Turtles are all born with their shells. Their shells are part of their skeleton. The same way that your skeleton's inside, part of their skeleton is outside. And there's some turtles, land turtles, that can pull their head into their shells. Sea turtles cannot. They're always out. It's a permanent thing. There's no way to get them in. So I like that we threw off most of the audience. Proud Wolf got it right and keeps the lead. Could be wire to wire. Okay. How does Disney's Vero Beach Resort help turtles? And I will note that there's one of these 4 answers is an answer that if it appears in one of my Kahoots is almost always the correct answer. So sea turtle friendly lighting, reducing single-use plastics, beach cleanups, or hint, hint, nudge, nudge, all of the above. We want to reinforce all these concepts with you together. All right, let's see. One more second. Yes, all of the above is correct. A few of you are quick to the draw with sea turtle friendly lighting, which is true, but so are the others. Let's see what that does to our leaderboard. Smiling Cheetah is 3rd. 2nd is Jubilant Urchin. And 1st, is it Proud Wolf? Do we have a wire-to-wire winner? That hasn't happened in ages. And it is. Way to go. If you are Proud Wolf, it's Livy in North Carolina. Livy, way to go. You rock. That's very cool. If you are any of those folks, let us know who you are in the chat. We are going to dive in with questions. Now, St. Gabriel, I'm coming to you first for a live question in a minute. Ms. Nielsen, you're second. We're going to go along the train, but I'm going to take some amazing ones from our chats. So here we go. Our 4B class, these are Mr. Wingard's ballers in Charleston, South Carolina. They want to know, they read that temperature affects the gender of turtles when they're nesting. Can you tell us about this in more detail?
Yes, amazing. So yes, the temperature that a nest incubates at will actually determine the sex of those hatchlings. So we say hot chicks, cool dudes, because the warmer the nest, the more likely there are to be females, and the cooler the nest, the more likely there are to be males. So in a ideal situation is that you've got eggs all in the egg chamber. They're all on top of each other. There's about 100 of them, and so the top of the nest might be a little bit hotter while the bottom of the nest is a little bit cooler. So hopefully you have a mixture of males and females in the nests. Florida, we see a lot more females than we do males just because it is so hot here. So yeah, that's a great question.
It is a great question. Very cool. Thanks, Mr. Wingard's class. All right, we're heading to Ottawa. St. Gabriel, unmute your mic. In fact, all our live classes, feel free to unmute your mic anytime, and we'll dive in with question number 2. Hey, guys.
Hi. Are there any other organisms or species that you guys focus on? And if so, what is their role in the environment?
Yeah.
Hey, Jesse, are you a Star Wars fan?
Huge Star Wars fan, and we'll talk about that later, dude. But we're going to dive in with the other question that he does. I got lots of Star Wars stuff behind me. Just you wait, like this little droid here is a Star Wars droid. There you
Amazing.
go.
Yeah, so Disney conservation as a whole, we do focus on multiple species. So we have a whole pollinator program where we really focus a lot on monarch butterflies, but also a lot of native bee species as well. They play an immensely important role in our whole food chain. They pollinate everything really, from the crops that you eat to the vegetables to all of the flowers and native wildlife that other species rely on, not just us. So we have a huge program focusing on them. We also study purple martins, which are a swallow, so a bird. They come to Walt Disney World actually to nest every single year. So we do a lot with them. And we have our sea turtles. And then we also do a lot of coral restoration work in the Bahamas. So those are kind of our four main programs that we focus on.
So I think we're going to have to get the bird and the coral on, because we have done monarchs, and I did just put that in the chat for everyone. So you can check out the amazing monarch program with Morgan. It was awesome a few weeks back. So do check that out when you're done if you're keen. All right, Miss Nielsen, we're heading to you, 5th graders. Come on in and take us away. Hey, guys.
Hi.
What's good? Why are some sea turtles bigger than others?
Ooh.
Yeah, so some are just bigger than others because that's the way that they've evolved. And it could have something to do with their diet as well. So like those leatherbacks are really, really big. They're eating a lot of jellyfish. The green sea turtles are eating the seagrasses. So it has a little bit to do with diet, but then also just how they've evolved over millions of years. So just like dogs are different sizes, the turtles are different sizes too.
Yep, it's a great question. Thanks, guys. All right, West, I'm heading to you. Then I'll take a couple from YouTube. We'll keep the train going. We got so many questions. Write them down. We'll get them all to Emily after if you don't get them answered, but we're going to take as many as we can. We got 12 minutes to go. Hi, grade 3s. Welcome in.
Do sea turtles hold their breath?
Ooh, cool question.
This is a really good question, right? So they do. So even though they live in the ocean almost all the time, they do have to breathe air. And so they come up to the surface to breathe, and then they dive down and they have to hold their breath. And so when they're active and they're swimming around and maybe they're looking for food, they'll only hold their breath for a few minutes and then they'll come back up to the surface to breathe. But if they're sleeping, they can stay underwater for like 4 hours, which is insane.
Is insane. People, like the all-time record for people. I want to know. I think it's like 18 minutes, something like that for people. Maybe ever.
It's gotta be, yeah, I was gonna say there's no way it's more than like 20 minutes.
No,
yeah.
Turtles crush us. So it's very, very cool. And they are air breathers. A lot of things in the water do have to come up for breath. So basically, if at any point in their evolutionary history things came on land for a bit and then went back to the water, they have to breathe air. If they have gills, they can breathe in the water. Sort of a broad benchmark for you to think of with creatures, but it's worth remembering. All right, in Edmonton, Declan in Mr. Who's class has a great question, and I've got a cool picture for this. How do leatherback turtles eat the jellyfish without getting stung, Emily?
Yes. So it's possible that they're kind of like immune to that stinging. Also, while they're swimming through the jellyfish, they've got really, really thick scales. So it's not like our nice, delicate skin where if we were swimming through jellyfish, we would get stung. But then once they're eating that jellyfish, they actually have this structure in their throats and even down into their esophagus that's called papillae. And I think Jesse said, yes,
Yeah.
It looks insane, right? So basically it's these like flexible keratin-based spikes that are pointed down their throat. And so as they're eating those jellyfish and they're gulping in all that water along with them, those spikes kind of like hold those jellyfish in and like push them down into their stomachs. They're not like hanging out in their throat for a long time. They can also like spit back out the water while the jellyfish are staying down in there. So it's really cool. It looks crazy. But
looks crazy. To the Star Wars note, it looks like a Sarlacc pit. Now, most of you would have seen Star Wars, but in like 5 years, you can watch it, and then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. All right, multi-age 2-3s, we're coming to you. Come on in and take us away, festive Christmas class. Hi, guys.
How do the baby sea turtles eat the huge jellyfish?
Ooh.
Yeah, so when they're little, they're not eating jellyfish. So they probably won't eat jellyfish until they're much older. So when they are these little tiny hatchlings, they're eating a lot of just like microscopic things, tiny little larvae, and just little tiny things. And then as they get older and bigger, which as we talked about takes several years, they have lifespans that are kind of similar to you all with their growth rates. And so, as they get bigger, they're going to start eating bigger and bigger things. So they'll start with smaller fish, and then they'll move to bigger fish, and they'll move to jellyfish or seagrasses, depending on the species. Yep, they're not eating jellyfish right out the gate.
Whew, okay, we'll work up to that. The jellyfish are kind of scary. Lavi, our winner of our Kahoot, come on in North Topsail Beach. Welcome in. Hey.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Good.
Wonderful. So I have a few questions. My first question is, what happens to the baby washback sea turtles?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I know that you know that because you said you're from Topsail. So you all are in an area where there are a lot of turtles that are nesting and hatchlings that are going out. And so sometimes these hatchlings are small, right? And so sometimes when they head out, maybe a big storm is kind of going through or the water's just really rough, they might get pushed back onto shore. And so that's what we call washbacks. So they are turtles that headed out. Maybe they got out, as far out into the ocean as they wanted to go, but then something blew them back onto shore and they got kind of tossed back up on shore. And so usually what will happen is a group that is permitted to work with sea turtles will go out and collect those hatchlings. They'll bring them to a rehab facility where they will make sure that they're healthy, make sure that there's nothing else going on with them. And then usually we'll have to put them on a boat and take them way out back into the ocean. There's an area where all these hatchlings are headed called the Sargasso Sea. And it's where all of this sargassum seaweed is kind of like forming together in these big rafts and floats. And the hatchlings take refuge in that area. There's a lot for them to eat, but they camouflage in it super well, so predators can't find them. But that sargassum is really only located pretty far offshore. And so usually the groups will get a boat and they'll be able to take them back out to that sargassum and get them back out to that nice habitat that they want to be in.
What a great answer. We haven't talked about the sargassum or Sargasso Sea in a long time, but I encourage everybody, check out the sargassum fish. They're really wild and freaky and they blend right in and they're so cool. And that's your homework for the day when you're done this broadcast. All right, we're going to head to Mrs. Thrasher's class. Welcome in Birmingham. Our boss's crew, we can head to you guys in a second if you flick on your mic, and then we'll take maybe one or two more from YouTube, and then everyone else, email me those questions. Time flies and you're having fun, and there's like 700 of you, so I'm taking as many as I possibly can. Mrs. Thrasher, welcome in and take us away. Hey, guys.
How many teeth does a leatherback sea turtle have?
Ooh.
Yeah, they actually don't have any teeth. So they just have jaws here. I didn't show their big skull, but kind of here's their skull. They have what almost looks like teeth at the front here. This kind of just helps them hold on to all those jellyfish. So none of the turtles have actual teeth. They just have really strong jaws, and they just use those strong jaws to bite through all of their food.
It's quite amazing how many different things in the ocean end up with like a beak-like structure. Many fish have it. The turtles have it. You got it in like the things like squid, octopus have a beak inside. It's really, really cool. All right. A couple more from YouTube, and then we'll wrap up classes. I wish I could come back to you all a million times, but time flies and you're having fun, and we are nearing the end of the broadcast. So Elena, one of our most question asker people of all time, she wanted to know how many pounds can a green sea turtle gain while eating seagrass?
Oh, that's a great question, and I actually have no idea.
Yes,
that is really good. Yeah, you have stumped me.
I mean, how big do they get? They're like what, 500-600 pounds when they're at their biggest? So
yeah, about 300 to 450 pounds. So they can be big, and you can have a chunky turtle. So they definitely can overeat. We're all headed into holiday season where we're probably all going to overeat, gain a few pounds. So they can too. So you can see some pudgier turtles out there, but they'd probably have to eat a lot of seagrass.
My dog, for the first time, broke onto our table and ate some of our Christmas cookies the other day. So I'm going to be a little skinnier, but the dog is in big trouble. That's my Christmas note of the day. Had a whole bunch of questions, Emily, about what attacks the turtles. Is there any predator of them in the wild?
Yeah, so when they're little, unfortunately, they have a lot of predators. So even making that dash from their nest down to the ocean, Crabs, birds can get them. And then once they hit the water, really any fish big with a mouth bigger than they are could eat them. But as they get older, their shells get harder, they get bigger. And then especially when they are adults, they're pretty big and they're pretty hard to chomp through. So not much will try to attack them. Some larger sharks will give it a go.
Yeah.
But usually they're pretty good once they reach adulthood.
So I used to work at Ripley's Aquarium in downtown Toronto, and they had 2 big green sea turtles. And there's these big, like 10-foot long sand tiger sharks in the tank. And people always ask, oh, do the sharks attack the turtles? And it's like, no, the turtles attack the sharks. Like the turtles are such the bosses of the tank. The sharks would come by and they would nip at them, and the sharks would be like, oh gosh.
Oh my God.
That's my personal experience of that in the wild. Emily, before we wrap up and bring in all our classes to say a big thank you and farewell, and classes, I will be sending you a little survey at the end too, if you can be so kind as to fill it out. Is there any last message you want to leave us with about sea turtles, about Vero Beach, about the amazing work you guys are doing at Disney to protect them?
I want to thank you all for tuning into this. I mean, like I mentioned in the presentation, just learning more is one of the biggest ways that you can help turtles. As I mentioned, we can't do this ourselves. As much as I wish that I could single-handedly save sea turtles, I can't do it alone. It requires literally everybody. And you don't have to make like a big change or do something big and dramatic. Just like small little changes in your everyday can make a huge difference for not just sea turtles, but really wildlife everywhere. So, instead of throwing that water bottle away, recycling it. That small act makes a huge difference. So I just encourage you all to look for those little things in your everyday life. And also I just encourage all of you to follow your passion, whether it's conservation or wildlife or science or math or art or music or whatever. Just follow your passion and bring others along on that journey with you as well. And you'll make a huge difference in this world.
Well, Emily, I'm so glad that you followed your passion and became such an amazing turtle scientist, expert, and advocate. This has been such a fun program, one of our wrap-up shows of the entire year, and it's been such a thrill having you. I hope to have many more with Disney in the future, so let's chat and make that happen. But till then, how we end every broadcast, I'm going to bring in all our classes to say a big thank you and farewell, and you can stick around after to chat with me. But St. Gabriel, Miss Nielsen, Westview, Multi-Aid, La Vie.